Hi, I'm Chuck Dorsett for Weaver Leathercraft, and this is the Leather Element. If you've got a good question for us or a good idea for a leather element, drop it in the comment box below. As crafters, we don't typically have a heavy-duty sewing machine in our shop, so when we want to tackle, say, a holster or a sheath, we've got to chisel through 3 layers of leather. Now, 3, 4 to 5s, not an issue, but when we've got an 8 to 9 or 9 to 10, and we're going to do 3 plies, face, welt, and back, that's going to be almost impossible to get a chisel through straight. But what is impossible, and I think you'll agree, is getting that chisel back out. We've got an easy fix for this. So let's step over here and look at a simple trick. It's going to make the whole process easier. I've got a holster pattern ready to go cut, and I've got a groove line all the way around. Now typically, I'm going to chisel and sew the entire piece because I'm going to line this. But let's just deal with the section where our welt's going to be. That's where we've got the biggest problem. So my welt, I've got this wet formed into shape. Looks good. It's going to fit nicely. Now typically, I'm going to glue my welt in and then chisel. With a 2-tine chisel, that's not too hard to get it back out. But the problem is keeping that chisel straight up and down. So let's do this. We're going to chisel one side. Then from that, we're going to mark our welt and our other side. So let's see how easily this really does line up. So I'm going to start right here on my incoming groove line. Okay, chisel line, clean and consistent. Now, one more point. We could always glue this in, like I mentioned, and chisel both at the same time. But an easier route there is to chisel our face. Let's glue our welt on, and then let's just use a single tine to work through that. Makes it easier on our hands. But at the same time, we're only sewing about 6 inches here. If we had 3 feet going back through with a 1 tine, that would be tedious. But all told, short distance, no problem. Let's step over to our pattern table. We're going to mark our pattern and or our tracing film. The reason I say and or is because our pattern, we've got that, we can mark on that. But what we're going to do is we're going to press an awl or a pencil through that hole into our pattern or our tracing film. This is easier to mark, easier to see. You'll see where I'm going with this. Now, we could always take this and we could tack it on, or we could tape it, or we could clip it and chisel through it. Long way around the barn. Let's just do this. Let's drop our panel right on the edge of our pattern. Now, for our awl, I love this awl. It's going to last forever, but it's a little bit wide down here. So if I push that through my chisel hole, it's going to open up that hole, and I don't want that. So let's just go with a good sharp pencil. Now, I want to keep this as straight up and down as I can. There we go. Let's just mark right into our tracing film. It would be nice if our pencil were straight up and down every time. And it'd also be nice if we were perfectly centered in these holes. Not going to happen. But that really doesn't matter. Because when we flip this over, drop this on our edge there, now I can see my groove line through my tracing film. So if this hole is a little bit in, I'm not going to worry about it. What I'm going to do is change over to my awl. And now let's drop that mark in our groove line. And our last hole. Okay, well that looks good. Now the camera's probably not going to pick that up very well, but I can see that easily. Really though, it's the concept of what we're doing more than the visual. Okay, so I've got that marked. Now let's jump over to our welt. Let's do exactly the same thing. And let's go over to our punch table and let's chisel to our marks. Between my pattern table and here, I went back in with my awl. So now the camera can actually see those marks. And the same on our welt. So let's jump back over. Let's use our chisel for both our welt and the other side of our holster. Now, this may seem a little tedious, and it is, but these are going to line up nicely. The second benefit here is that typically, if I'm going to chisel for my face panel, I don't want to drop in a groove on the back because I'm probably not going to be able to hit that. And that's just going to look terrible to have a groove and then a stitch line. But right there, we're right in that groove line, front and back. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to glue this together let's jump over to our sewing pony. Let's see if these holes really do line up. I've glued our 3 pieces together and I've trimmed my welt to size. So let's see how this is going to sew. Look at that. First hole, I'm happy with that already. Now, one trick. Since trying to get through 3 layers can be a little bit difficult with 2 needles, what we can do is pull 1 needle through. Let's pull that back. Now that opens up that hole. I'm not worried about splitting my thread. And it makes it a little easier for us if we don't have that much hand strength to try to force both needles and our thread through here. So let's go another hole. Let's see how we're doing. Look at that. Lining up beautifully. And one more hole, and then let's see. I'm going to go down to the end and let's see how these work. Lining up beautifully thus far. Halfway through, I am having no trouble. These holes are lining up nicely. This is lining up so nicely I was able to use both needles on the majority of the holes. So let's see on our last hole, how are we lining up here? Right through. That's exactly what we're looking for. And this process, it's actually exceptionally easy on my hands because I'm not having to struggle to push that needle through. But all told, good looking stitch line, both sides, everything is lining up, and again, easy on our hands. And that's exactly right. If it's easier on our hands, it's easier on us. Therefore, our time in our shop, more enjoyable, and our projects will always show that. I hope this is good information for you. Thanks for taking time to watch The Leather Element. Good luck with your projects.